Hi, I'm Liz Toombs, your host for Sorority Chat, the podcast about all things Greek housing, decorating, and beyond. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I hope that you enjoy what you're hearing on each episode from me and the guests on the show. And if you are, please share with a friend and leave us a review. Happy listening. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm great, Liz. How are you?
Doing well. I appreciate you taking some time to come on to Sorority Chat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to see you and catch up.
I know. It's nice to see you too. We usually at least get to visit once a year or so in person, but we didn't even get to do that this year. So this is a nice time to get together and chat.
Absolutely.
All right. So Eustis Chair. Actually, I feel like that name is a little bit misleading now because it's not just chairs that you offer, right?
It's true. It's true. And if it wasn't for like branding, I feel like every brand, redo is always not as good as the regular. Like, if they try to change from Coca-Cola or whatever, it's just always a little different. So I think we're kind of beholden to Eustis Chair, even though we do tables now. So, but yeah I hear you.
I think that's fine. I think that's all right. That the chair is your kind of standard staple, and then anything else is just sort of a cherry on top, huh?
Yeah, totally.
Well, tell everybody exactly what Eustis Chair offers. You have a really unique, I think, market position. And so I'd love for you in your own words to talk about that and then what your company has.
Yeah, well, thank you again. So Eustis Chair, we really take a different look on furniture, and whether that be chairs or tables or benches, we can do any, and we have done all of those different things over the years. But the thing that we really add is a different viewpoint on durability, functionality, and then also now sustainability, because all of those now are intertwined essentially. And so if you think about furniture, 99% of the furniture out in the world has been designed by somebody, and it's great and it can look really beautiful, but it may not actually last for that long because they haven't changed how they're connecting the chair together since literally ancient Egypt or Game of Thrones. Pick your analogy. It's all medieval-ish in that, the fact is that the chair joinery is the weak link of the chair or the table for that instance. And then you have to have, more pieces of wood to kind of help keep things together, like chair stretchers or table aprons, which definitely served a purpose and were necessary for a long time. But we kind of were looking in that and going, well, there's probably got to be a better way to do this. And then we looked and we started testing and we came up with our joinery system. And the joinery system now kind of flips that, where now the chair joints are the strongest part. And so therefore you can stack chairs and they can also last 10 times longer. So you can really have a useful life and a better investment on your furniture for commercial and big projects that can really be restored and touched up for decades to come. And so you don't have to be constantly worrying about sourcing new furniture again.
Yes. And I think in the world of Greek housing, there's so much value there. You talked about it being an investment, but then the longevity, how long you're going to be able to keep these pieces. You mentioned just touching them up. You don't have to worry about them crumbling if somebody is sitting on them or, God forbid, standing on them, because we all know how this goes. I think there's a lot of value there. I remember seeing your products for the first time, or like your marketing stuff, and you had a chair laid on its back and you were crouched down standing on the front two legs of the chair. And I thought, what the heck is this? Like, I need to know what's going on. And so I guess that alludes to the joinery system that you're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Is that a patented thing that you guys have?
It's proprietary. It used to be patented, and it was Professor Bob Eustis, formerly of the Stanford University out in Palo Alto, that invented it. And he was a cousin of Fred Eustis and Bill Eustis, the founders of Eustis Chair. And so he was just a really imaginative guy, a lot like Bill Eustis, and they could just kind of dream up things. And so he came up with all kinds of neat inventions, including the Eustis joint. And also really cool other kind of side note, for aging wine faster, especially like oaked Chardonnay. He came up with, instead of round barrels, square barrels, because there's more surface area and all things, just like simple things, but they could really make a big difference to help, like, Kendall Jackson or big producing wine companies age their, Chardonnays faster. So the more surface contact and whatever, it's like, wow, it doesn't take a degree in, rocket science to figure that out, but just kind of like approaching things a little bit different and kind of going, why is it that way? It's kind of like kid curiosity in my mind.
Yeah. It's like this is how we've always done it kind of thing, but why don't we change it up a little bit?
Totally.
So as a total sidebar, are there square wine barrels there then?
There are. They never really have taken like a complete, market base, just because everything is so based around round things, and they can obviously roll and move around a lot easier, as you in bourbon country can attest to. So I don't think, the bourbon makers would ever go for it, because obviously they couldn't do that cool, run of the, barrels down the hill or whatever it is.
Yeah, you're right. So you've mentioned 3 people with the last name Eustis. You do not have the last name Eustis. So how in the world did you come to be a part of this company?
Yeah, it's a great question. And sometimes I kind of scratch my head and kind of go, how did I get here? But really, I like to say that it was serendipity. It's all with, networking, and not that I love networking because I love meeting people and hearing what they do and everything else. But it wasn't like I was actively trying to acquire a business or anything of the sort. It kind of just found me. And in a small world, based in Andover, Massachusetts, which is just 30 minutes north of Boston, my sister-in-law, Katie, was babysitting for the previous owner, Fred Eustis's 4 girls when they were growing up in Andover as well. And so it was really through my sister-in-law and her father that we all kind of met. And then essentially I was working at a software startup in Boston, focusing on residential real estate software and technology, and helping lots of people, including, brokerages there in Lexington and all over the country, get better real estate websites that they could search faster and have better lead management and deal tracking in the back end and all this cool stuff. And this chair thing came up and I was like, wait a minute, this is really cool. How often do you have this chance of really taking a business that has really strong foundation, has been helping all these great institutions, and whether it's, UK locally or Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all these great places, or in even some of the most beautiful churches and other kind of institutions out there, and kind of going, wow, we built chairs there and they're still there 20 years later, 25 years later. And so it's like, wow, we really do have a cool marketplace and a niche in the market that really offers a value to people. And that's the only thing I can really get behind, is something that really does do something and stands behind what they do. And then I've always liked the environmental kind of bent of things, being a skier and person that enjoys being outside. And so all of those kind of came together. And then all of a sudden here I am now in a chair company.
That's funny. That's wild to hear, it was software. And then now here you are running a chair company. Now, where do you guys make your chairs? Is it here locally, domestically?
Yeah, we used to manufacture in Ashburnham, Massachusetts. And in, the old chair history of the world, that used to be the hardwood chair capital of the country. And there was 10 factories in town, including Nichols and Stone, Standard Chair, Gardner. And so there's, one of those giant kind of almost Paul Bunyan-like size chairs in the city center that you could still go and visit and, get your photo opportunity for social media on and everything. And then in the last downturn, we were, backed up against the wall, in that we had a great year in 2009. But then literally in 2010, the music stopped. All capital funding and projects were, ceased, understandably. And so Fred Eustis had to choose between either shutting the factory down in Ashburnham and moving to a contract facility, or just completely shuttering down everything and just kind of walking away. And so it wasn't, an easy decision by any stretch, but it was the easiest decision to decide to move to a contract factory. And so we now manufacture out in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
And in a small world like everything is, it turns out that when we started as a contract manufacturer for Stickley in 1989, Bill Eustis, who I was referencing earlier, he was this great kind of tinkerer, inventor. He invented the modern day snow making machine that you would see at Vail Resorts and various other places. He invented that, and there's pictures of him and Fred Eustis, his son, testing it at a cold storage building here in the Boston area. And sure enough, they were able to make 2 inches of snow and let the kids all play around and make snow angels and everything. It was super fun for all the kids. But Bill Eustis was this tinkerer and liked to improve things, much like his cousin Bob Eustis. And he decided he wanted to get into the chair manufacturing business. I mean, he's just like, I want to do something with my hands, and I want it to be with wood. And so he went and bought a factory in Ashburnham, Massachusetts, and didn't have any business yet, just bought the factory.
Oh, gosh.
And then all of a sudden, went and introduced himself through some mutual acquaintances through the Boston design and architecture friends that he had, to the Audi family that still owns Stickley Furniture in Manlius, New York. And somehow Bill Eustis, having never built a chair, convinced the Audi family that he could improve the joinery tolerances and build better chairs than all of his contract factories that they were currently, using could do. And sure enough, the Audi family said, sure, we're going to give you our highest end chairs. And we did that. And so we manufactured, I think, 30 some odd thousand chairs for Stickley between 1989 and about 2005.
Okay.
And so when we started up, we took business away from our current contract factory, who's been around for 200 years and have been only a contract factory for their whole entire existence. And so, kind of long story, we took business away. And then in 2010, we came back and brought them more business with our own line, when we were kind of up in dire straits of needing help and needed to close down our factory and kind of weather the storm until purchases came back and capital spending and construction came back again. And so 2010, already 12 years ago, it has been a great match, and our factory is just absolutely awesome. If anyone ever wants to come take a really cool tour, it's an easy flight over to Buffalo, New York, and literally it's a cool old building, but inside they have 14 state-of-the-art CNC machines. And so it's kind of this blending of old world, history and then new world construction. And that, we have all these really cool 5-6 axis CNC machines from Germany and Italy, and they can do just absolutely amazing things. But there's still 140 people working hard, really building the best chairs in the country for us and for a couple other companies too.
That's really cool to hear, how it started, and that, okay, initially your company and your factory may have taken some business from this other, and then now here they are still standing, and you all have come back and you've brought more business. I mean, what are the odds, that something like that would happen?
It's so true. You almost can't make it up. It seems like it's like some storybook
right
kind of movie setting.
Totally. And here I thought we were going to be talking about sustainability and investment furniture, and I've learned about square wine barrels and snowmaking machines. So this is a whole education in itself today.
Oh.
So you were talking about just some of the higher end chairs with Stickley and some of those types of things. And that's definitely how I would categorize your company's furniture as higher end, because you do have such a great joinery system. The product is so great. You can hold on to it for a long time. So let's talk a little bit about some of your clientele, because it's not just fraternity and sorority houses that you work with or that you furnish. You work in a number of similar but different environments. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So from the start of our company, Stickley, they have, not only all their residential furniture, but they also have kind of, because of the namesake of being one of the foremost manufacturers of furniture in the United States, we learned from them that, chairs can go in lots of places. And so we've always kind of sought out to provide service and furniture to any place, and we call them signature spaces. And that signature space can be anywhere almost. So we've done lots of churches, We've done lots of libraries. Libraries is actually our most historic business place, and that we've done public libraries all over the country. We've been a member of the American Libraries Association for, I think, 20 some odd years. We're one of their older members, but it's been around for 100 years or something like that. So we're definitely not the oldest, but libraries is our most important and longest lived market. And so we have lots of law school libraries, public libraries, even there locally throughout the Midwest, West Coast, East Coast, up and down the whole entire country. We have some great public library installations. And so that's been our most historic market. But lately, as libraries have been evolving and really becoming a community gathering center where you need Wi-Fi and you need accessibility and you want maybe, Adirondack furniture so that people can enjoy the nice spring weather and, summer season upcoming, etc. And then also easy gathering spots and colorful, bright furniture for the kids to play with. So libraries have kind of taken a turn, and yes, they still have maybe a special collections area where we might be found, or just general reading desks for sure, which is still important. But as the library market evolved, we kind of started to see this great opportunity for private clubs. And we find that we're actually really similar to sororities and fraternities. We kind of think of them as sororities and fraternities, meaning of kind of junior clubs, essentially, and that you're taking like-minded people that are really doing amazing things and have some great dreams and vision of what they want to accomplish, and they have a great community to support them and challenge them and keep them accountable in the college perspective to grow and learn and be together and have that unique sense of community. And that's, after their college years, a lot of those people end up in private clubs. Mm-hmm. And so the public, from going from public libraries into private clubs is kind of like the, complete community gathering to most, exclusive gatherings of some of these really elusive clubs that don't talk about what they do and things like that, and have all kinds of presidents that have been members or still are members and gather in the redwoods out in Sonoma, California area or something like that. And so we've been lucky enough to work with all kinds of different places, whether it's churches, synagogues, libraries. We actually just got our first elementary school library project this week.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So we kind of really go wherever there's a signature space where people care about the furniture, they care about the space itself, and it's, maybe it's the church chapel at, Western Kentucky University that's really beautiful that we did several years ago, or maybe it's the gathering room and, dining room at a fraternity or sorority, or maybe it's, one of the college kind of Hogwartsian buildings at Cornell or Harvard or something like that we've done. And so really we go wherever people really care about furniture.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I like the term signature spaces. I wrote that down because I think that's a really great all-encompassing term. And you did a great job of talking about how you kind of service each of those different market sectors. But the commonality in all of them is that, like you said, the people appreciate furniture in this space, but also it's commercial, but not like it doesn't need to look like a healthcare facility in terms of commercial or to be a hotel, but you have mass amounts of people running through that space at all times. And so it has to be very durable, has to hold up well. And, that just kind of lines back up with what we talked about earlier. Just these are investment pieces that you're keeping for 30 years and they're going to live up to that for you.
Absolutely. Or even longer.
Yes, totally. And what made me laugh earlier is when you had said something about these are pieces you could keep for however long. I thought there's been a number of projects that I've walked into the house, sorority or fraternity, either one, and somebody will say, this furniture was here when my mom or my dad or my aunt was here. And it's not the stuff that you want to still be there at that point. It's just stuff that's kind of hung out. So yours is not going to be ugly when the time, passes over the years.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate on your social media, and you also send out an email newsletter. So I've seen this in both places, but I appreciate the photos that you share of your finished projects because as an interiors person, I like to see and get inspired by other projects. And so when you show different chair styles, different fabrics, different finishes, then that kind of gives me something to go off to understand more of what you all offer, but then also to kind of get some creative juices flowing and get inspired for my own projects.
Absolutely. And really, that's probably the other thing behind signature spaces is really working with like-minded professionals in the industry like you and Erica, and that, our chairs are kind of a blank slate, and that we really need someone like yourself to come in and say, oh, wow, here's our vision. Here's kind of all the different finishes and colors that we're going to bring together to really make, this place special and make either the students feel great and really excited about doing whatever they're doing, whether it's study time or whether it's just time to kick back and relax on a nice comfy couch like I see behind you. So the fact is that we love to collaborate with designers and architects and the end client to really come up with solutions that make sense for them. And we have a lot of expertise of knowing, hey, that doesn't actually work out very well. Or, hey, yes, we can do that. Absolutely. We can shrink the chair so you can fit in one more person at each table, which then adds up quite but on a whole entire dining hall or something like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of customization opportunities that we've had with your company. Like you said, either just slightly adjusting the dimensions, or if we have a table finish that we want the chairs to match instead of trying to contrast it, you work with us on that with the sampling and going through that process. Obviously, that adds a little bit more time to things because we're having to go through that color selection process. But that is another really great aspect, I think, of this kind of level of furniture. And I also think domestic production, because everything can go a little bit more smoother and be controlled.
Absolutely. And that, was really where we try to offer our value, is being local in the United States and having a true opportunity with our factory to really craft and tweak things as we go along. And there's been, so many projects where we get up into, drawing the chair, it looks great. And then we build the first sample for, production and approval. And then all of a sudden people say, oh, wait a minute, can we do this last little change? And we say, sure, no big deal. We'll just, adjust the programming and the fixtures and, make that last little tweak of whether it's, an extra inch of foam in the seat, or whether it's, making the chair, sitting angle a little bit more relaxed or something like that. So it's so easy for us to do.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure customers appreciate that because, if they're getting something that they'll be keeping for so long, you want to make sure that all of those details are right and there is no concern about, oh man, I wish we had thought about this or changed this little detail.
Absolutely. That's, so painful for us to see in, projects, because we definitely don't win every project. A lot of times somebody comes in and says, oh, I can find a chair for so much less money. And oh my gosh, I'm going to save us $20,000, which is great, until, then they call back a year later and say, oh, 2 chairs broke under the members at this exclusive club and fell down in the middle of dinner. Like, you can't script that the train wreck of atrocities of like having a nice dinner with your friends or colleagues or maybe a business contact, and then your chair literally breaks under you. But I guess a good dinner story, but horrible from an operations procedure and kind of liability and everything else. And so it really is one of those things that we can't imagine cutting that corner of really trying to make less expensive furniture and, cutting any corners essentially.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that comes back to the discussion that I have with a lot of furniture vendors, reps, those types of people kind of in our world, that it's a difference of value and price. We're talking about two totally different things. And so price is one discussion, but value is another. And you just have to understand what it is that you're purchasing and receiving, and figure out how that factors into your project, into your budget and your long-term goals, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, but you do offer do you call it a value line? There's a line that you offer. It was like with quantity breaks and such. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Just because
Sure,
you
absolutely.
have that to sort of adapt for people as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Because the fact is that there's only so many New York City public libraries with the beautiful Midtown reading room that has this beautiful chair that we've done the antique replication of. There's just there's lots of Carnegie libraries and there's lots of projects out there, but they all require money and everything else. And so I came to the revelation in the pandemic that, hey, we have a really great opportunity to maybe help more people in understanding that not everyone can afford the top tier chair, but maybe kind of going into like a good, better, best opportunity of saying, okay, if you want the best chair, absolutely, we can do that. We can customize, we can laser engrave it. We can do all kinds of really cool things to make everyone feel really special. Or we can also just go with a solid, good chair. Or now we have our value line that is actually going to even provide a little bit more, and that there's not as many bells and whistles. And so, yes, you can't maybe pick your stain color and have it custom matched and adjust the seat width and the seat height and all these little things. It's kind of saying, hey, here's some prepackaged chairs that we're going to inventory and have at a slightly faster lead time and be able to get to market and help people that have a project that maybe only have, say, a $400 chair budget instead of an $800 chair budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's great because that way it's a little bit of something for everyone, because depending on what your budget, what your timeline is, all of those are factors that really make a difference. And so by having something that's just slightly better for one of those factors, I think it makes a difference on a project.
Absolutely. And that's our hope, is that, we love to try to help whenever we can. And nothing is worse than when someone calls you and says, oh my gosh, we're a summer camp out in the Berkshires of Eastern Massachusetts or Western Massachusetts. And, we're getting ready for camp season and it's starting, June. And you're like, we don't have any chairs ready. And so it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like we would love to help. And it was a camp that, a lot of people are going through and they need something durable and they want it to look a certain way because that camp life is so important to so many families around the country. And we're like, wow, it would be great to help, but hopefully maybe next year.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about lead times, because I'm a huge proponent of trying to educate clients and end users on this process. We all know it's only gotten worse and longer as a result of COVID for a myriad of reasons that we probably don't even have time to talk about. But let's just talk about in general, Brian, like what is a wise timeline for someone to give for, kind of working backwards of this is their deadline? How much time should they allow? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And yeah, it's always so helpful to just have the basic idea of how much time do I need? Okay, hey, we have a project. When do I need to think about furniture? I mean, really, our minimum lead time right now, if you call in and say, hey, I need 400 chairs, or whether it's 100 chairs or 400 chairs, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, it's still going to take us 6 months to build them.
Okay.
And that's from everything from getting the hardwood, which isn't that hard because they're all domestically grown hardwoods, and then sending it over to the steam bending supplier who bend the wood in the right radius for the chair backs to make the furniture extra strong, but that they need 2 to 3 months just to bend the wood, let it dry in the right radius, and then send it back to the factory to start production. Mm-hmm. And so we're hoping to get back to our 3-month standard lead time, but anyone's best guess as to when that's actually going to be a reality again. So I would say for a custom project, a year is a really safe estimate to plan your time around, because knowing that we can send samples back and forth and really work through all the details and then have plenty of time to say, okay, we got the order together and off we go, and have the 6 months of production time. Whereas, if you come to us with 6 months, it's kind of a hurried effort. We can do it for sure, but at the same time, we got to keep marching and everyone's got to really be on the same page. And so if there's a committee, it's going to take a really disciplined group think activity to really get everyone on board and on the train really fast to get going to allow us to build chairs.
You mean you don't get committees to just all have a consensus and just hit the ground running immediately?
committees, I mean, like it or not, so many decisions have to go through committees, and we understand that. And so, I mean, the fact is that, 6-month lead time is our best performance at this point, and longer is always better. So if we can have a full year, that really gives us plenty of time to make sure we can involve the committee and they can make those decisions and have everything comfortably hashed out when they send in the order, instead of having to still work out finish and fabric, and oh shoot, this fabric is just now out of stock and can't get it in stock, or it's out of production. We've all seen those comedy of errors that we just can't script any longer, because it's just the reality that everyone's in the same kind of position, of whether it's a carpet manufacturer, blind companies, paint companies every once in a while run out of the key ingredients to make certain paint colors. It's a challenging world out there.
It is a comedy of errors. You're right. I can't tell you how many construction calls I've been on where it's been, 1 minute we can't get white paint because of the chemicals. And then the next one, we're having trouble getting glass. And it's just like, you cannot make this stuff up. You never know what's coming. You'll, in my end, I'll pick a finish or we'll pick something, even if it's furniture. And then maybe by the time that ordering comes around, like you're saying, something's discontinued. There is a element of it that will not be in time in order to have it made and meet our deadline. And it is just constant. You're having to just rework things at the 11th hour. You're having plan B through Z at this point. It's not even just like a contingency plan. You have to be prepared to make replacement decisions at the last minute. And we're getting too good at it. I'm not really comfortable. We're comfortable now, and I don't want to be comfortable in this land of uncertainty.
But I mean, that just goes back to one of the most important things in our perspective, is that, committees are so important, but at the same time, having professionals to really help kind of guide you in all of these different things is just so critical in our perspective, that the work you do and all the others in the industry of really bringing these projects and really being the project manager of sorts, and really helping people to say, okay, hey, we need a decision on this by this date and this by this date, to make sure that everything comes together and is available for, back to school, or the big drives that might be happening, or maybe it's a big event or something like that. And so it's just so challenging to do when you're not doing it day in and day out.
You hit the nail on the head there, because I agree. When it's you have a committee, you're already getting some varying opinions, varying life experiences. And if it's not something that you as a committee member do every day, just like you said, you have to have someone helping guide you along, because it's also a little daunting to know that you are being charged with spending a certain amount of money, and you're going to be pouring this money into a product, and you don't want to pick the wrong thing. And so it gives everybody a little bit of analysis paralysis, and they won't make a decision. And so, I think that you're exactly right. Whether it's a house core board for a Greek organization or a planning committee at a club, I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that you are charged with. And so we understand that you don't want to make a mistake on this stuff.
Absolutely. And especially given the major dollars and opportunity to really shape not just the current students that are going through the sorority or fraternity, but the kids after them, and the future recruiting opportunities, and the future kind of community gathering opportunities to involve the alum and the current staff and students and everyone else. It's really kind of like a once in a lifetime thing. And just like they talk about with selling your house, you just don't want to just put it up on Zillow and hope for the best. It's a crazy market out there for furniture, and also, I guess, real estate too, that, you really need somebody that's doing it day in and day out, that really understands the nuances and sourcing and procurement and lead times and all that stuff to help kind of make your life easier.
Yeah, you really do. So, Brian, what would be your top advice for house core boards or someone in charge of a Greek housing project? What would you tell them as far as things to look for when you're making furniture decisions, whether that's as far as value or sustainability or whatever? Just what's your wisdom?
Absolutely. I mean, there's really 3 key things that I can think of that we share with all of our clients, whether you're a library and just a small local library, or the New York Public Library, or even some of these other really huge branches that have major operating capital and whole procurement divisions and everything else. It all is the same, in that you really need to start with the end in mind and understanding, when are we going to be able to afford or renovate again? So is that 15 years? Is that 20 years? What's your expected life cycle of this opportunity, of the project? And, knowing that, hey, yeah, we're not going to be able to touch this again for 20 years because by the time we do all the fundraising and everything else, it is going to be that long. Or maybe, hey, no, we're on a 5-year replacement cycle. We're doing great, and we get such wear and tear throughout the building that we have decided, and we have plenty of endowment or funds behind us to really perpetuate and kind of go through every 5 years and really touch it up and make it new and fresh and exciting for all the people coming through. That's great, but start with the end in mind and understand how long it's really going to take and how much money is going to take to replace all the furniture down the road. So that's kind of the most key thing for us. And then number 2, look at the warranties. We can't tell you how many times, like you were alluding to earlier in the call, how many places have furniture and they expect the furniture to last like it used to in our parents' generation or in our grandparents' generation. And that, the manufacturers, then they really understood building quality and they really invested in that and were proud of that. Whereas now, because of the complexities of the market, everyone that is still operating for the most part is mostly just trying to make chairs as inexpensively as they can. And they actually they want people to buy new furniture again. It's kind of like an Apple, product or something like that. They're beautiful, they work great, but at the same time, the battery starts going out and then all of a sudden, hey, guess what? There's a new iPhone out. Ta-da, you need to get a new iPhone. That's, maddening. But the fact is that that's not a very sustainable solution for anybody. And so you really have to look at the warranty and understand what you're investing in. And so knowing that, hey, a 20-year warranty against the joinery breaking, which is specifically our warranty, is going to be a lot more dynamic and something worthy of investment than a 2-year warranty for single shift service, and only against manufacturer's defects in workmanship, which really isn't a leg to stand on. It's like hardly worth your investment, knowing that you only have 2 short years and you're only supposed to sit in a chair once a day. What place is that? Except for your residential dining room. And even now people are probably sitting there more than once a day, taking their Zoom calls or something.
Totally.
Yeah. And so the number 3 thing is also to think about sustainability. Whether you're in any which way industry, that there's so much time and so much energy that gets put into all these really critical decisions to make your project come to life. And the last piece of the puzzle is knowing that, hey, the trash bills, the recycling bills, et cetera, they all add up. And the fact is that, it costs a lot more money to buy things in the future than it does now. And so we all know that, hey, if we can build something that's going to last, that truly is sustainability. And knowing that, wood chairs are the only product, when you think about chairs of either aluminum or steel or plastic, wood is the only option as far as a true, gas and also domestic production opportunity that doesn't involve a ton of energy and, more gas and more, polar ice caps melting and all the other kind of atrocious things that are happening, but that we can try to do our little part and alleviate. And that if you can buy quality wood furniture that can be reupholstered and refinished, that really is going to, 1, save you money and save you hassle, but then 2, it's also going to help kind of just save the planet as a nice, wonderful kind of cherry on top.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I really appreciate you kind of taking that zoomed out, bigger picture approach. It's not just about a chair or just about selling a room of furniture or, a dining room, whatever. You're really looking at the bigger picture and trying to talk to people and help them look at their budget, look at their needs, and think about the longevity of things. When you're talking about those chair warranties and paying attention, it reminded me of appliances right now. It's just becoming common knowledge that you're going to replace an appliance and you're probably only going to have it for about 5 years and then you're going to have to do it again, because it's not like that refrigerator from when we were kids that's still kicking in our garage. They're literally just making it to like churn and burn, and then just like what you're saying. And so in some ways that's a little bit sad, right? That we're not making things to last like they used to.
It is. And trying to kind of bring some, positive spin to it is that we do see so many people that are really looking at things in a really different and innovative way. And so like there's a furniture company that I came across in Michigan that's doing these really cool kind of kit beds that are designed to kind of grow with students as they're coming out of college and they need to get their first bed. And so instead of just going to IKEA and buying something that's really inexpensive, you can buy a very moderately priced bed frame from this great company in Michigan. And then all of a sudden, you can, 5 years later, you can get a headboard, and then you could kind of change the look and feel, but yet you still keep a lot of the critical parts that, can last for virtually ever, the side rails of the bed or, the risers of the bed and everything else. And so it's just, you see all these companies that are really doing really innovative things to help kind of offset that, to say, hey, yes, we believe in long-term ownership, and that you can do your own oil changes or whatever, kind of going back to yesteryears when you could do all of those things. But there are a lot of great companies that we do see that are like doing really amazing things and kind of helping people to own what they have and maintain it, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is. Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time. It was really enlightening to talk with you and to get to learn more about specifically your company, but then also just the furniture process and industry in general. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Liz. This has been a pleasure.